Imagine a fortress buried deep in the Mexican countryside. Reinforced concrete walls, advanced ventilation systems, and escape tunnels engineered to withstand military-grade assaults. These strongholds were constructed by cartel leaders like Rafael Caro Quintero, who believed their bunkers could outlast any law enforcement operation. Yet this sense of security would collapse, not by direct assault, but by a presidential decree and the deployment of military-grade drones, capabilities once reserved for foreign battlefields, now redirected at cartel infrastructure. On February 19, 2025, under the threat of a sweeping 25% tariff on Mexican exports, 29 major cartel figures were extradited to the United States in a single coordinated operation. This historic move signaled a turning point in the fight against organized crime, exposing the vulnerabilities of even the most sophisticated cartel hideouts. Picture this: a bunker hidden beneath an unassuming farmhouse in Sinaloa state. From the outside, it seemed like nothing more than a rural property, with a water trough positioned near the barn. Beneath the surface, these cartel bunkers represented a level of engineering and operational discipline rarely seen outside military installations. In Sinaloa, authorities uncovered a structure fortified with thick layers of concrete and steel. Its entrance concealed by a mechanized water trough. Inside, the bunker revealed a command center outfitted with satellite phones and computer terminals, living quarters that could sustain a team for weeks, and medical bays capable of treating gunshot wounds or chemical exposure without ever needing to risk a public hospital visit. The sophistication extended to logistics: reinforced doors, backup generators, and hidden storage rooms for weapons, cash, and narcotics. Every detail was designed for resilience and secrecy. This model was not unique to Sinaloa. In Jalisco State, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, constructed similar complexes, often integrating extensive tunnel systems. One such tunnel, discovered by authorities, stretched nearly a mile and connected the underground bunker to a safe house well outside the immediate area, providing a secure escape route and a covert channel for moving drugs and weapons. These tunnels were engineered for rapid evacuation, but also served as protected corridors for trafficking operations, allowing key operatives to vanish before law enforcement could mount a meaningful response. The operational logic behind these fortresses was clear. Cartel leaders required more than just a hiding place. They needed command centers that allowed them to direct operations, manufacture synthetic drugs like fentanyl, and coordinate trafficking logistics in near-total isolation. Some bunkers even contained clandestine laboratories, where fentanyl was produced using industrial-grade equipment. These underground labs enabled the cartels to maintain control over their supply chains, shield production from aerial surveillance, and minimize the risk of detection by local police or rival groups. In addition, the bunkers provided holding cells for kidnapping victims and secure meeting rooms where leadership could assemble without fear of interception. The psychological impact of these fortifications extended beyond their physical utility. For years, the mere existence of such structures acted as a deterrent, signaling to both rivals and authorities that the cartels could operate with impunity. The message was clear: these organizations were capable of outlasting any conventional assault. Even elite special forces units equipped with modern weaponry and intelligence found themselves repeatedly stymied by the complexity and secrecy of these underground networks. The bunkers became both a literal and symbolic barrier, reinforcing the cartel's image as shadow governments with the resources to challenge state authority. Yet, the very features that made these bunkers formidable also introduced a critical vulnerability. Anchored to fixed locations, reliant on power and communications infrastructure, and housing dozens of people at a time, these complexes inevitably produce detectable heat and electronic signals. The cartel's confidence in their physical defenses overlooked the risk of technological surveillance. But these physical defenses overlooked one fatal flaw: every bunker emits heat and communications signals, vulnerabilities exploited by a new generation of observation platforms. As surveillance technology advanced, the static nature of these fortresses became a liability. Drones equipped with thermal imaging and signal interception capabilities could identify underground activity, track movements, and monitor communications in real time. What once constituted a nearly impenetrable defense was now exposed to persistent, high-altitude observation. The shift from ground-based raids to remote surveillance marked a pivotal change in the balance of power. The stage was set for a dramatic escalation, but this transformation would require more than technological innovation. It demanded a fundamental change in how the cartels were classified and pursued, a policy shift that would open the door to new tactics and tools. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order that designated Mexican cartels, including the Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, as foreign terrorist organizations. This move placed them in the same legal category as groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, marking a sharp escalation in the US response to cartel violence and trafficking. The reclassification was described by officials as a declaration of war, shifting the legal and operational landscape overnight. The legal consequences were immediate and far-reaching. Under US law, anyone providing material support to a designated terrorist organization faces up to 20 years in prison. This meant that not only cartel leaders and operatives, but also those facilitating logistics, finances, or even coerced cooperation could be prosecuted under anti-terrorism statutes. The new classification enabled authorities to freeze assets, disrupt financial networks, and pursue a far broader range of associates than before. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies were no longer constrained by the limitations of conventional criminal statutes. The tools of counter-terrorism were now at their disposal. The most significant operational shift came with the expanded use of military-grade surveillance and intelligence-gathering platforms. Technologies once reserved for international counter-terrorism missions were now authorized for use against cartel targets. Drones equipped with thermal imaging and advanced signal interception could detect the heat signatures of underground bunkers and intercept encrypted communications. These systems monitored cartel movements and infrastructure in real time, exposing locations that had previously been shielded by geography and secrecy. Authorities could now identify power generators in hidden labs, track escape routes, and pinpoint the presence of armed guards, all without setting foot on the ground. The policy shift also introduced a new layer of diplomatic tension between the United States and Mexico. Mexican officials initially voiced concerns about sovereignty, wary that the terrorist designation could justify unilateral US operations on Mexican soil. The threat of US counter-terrorism actions, combined with the economic leverage of a proposed 25% tariff on Mexican exports, left little room for negotiation. Facing a potential economic crisis, President Claudia Sheinbaum reversed course. On February 19, 2025, Mexico executed a mass extradition of 29 high-profile cartel leaders to the United States. This included figures such as Rafael Caro Quintero, whose influence had shaped the drug trade for decades. The timing of the extraditions, which coincided with high-level diplomatic talks in Washington, underscored Mexico's willingness to comply under economic pressure. The extradition operation itself was a demonstration of the new intelligence capabilities unlocked by the terrorist designation. US agencies tracked cartel leaders to their fortified bunkers using real-time drone surveillance and signal interception. Facilities once thought invulnerable were identified by their thermal signatures and communications traffic. Escape tunnels, once a reliable means of evasion, were mapped and monitored, allowing authorities to intercept fugitives before they could disappear. The operation's success relied on the seamless integration of aerial intelligence and ground response, neutralizing the cartel's traditional reliance on secrecy and physical defenses. However, the consequences of the mass extradition extended beyond the removal of individual leaders. Many of those extradited had continued to direct cartel operations from within Mexican prisons, maintaining discipline and control over their organizations. Their abrupt absence created leadership vacuums, fueling internal conflicts and violent power struggles as rival factions sought to assert dominance. Cities such as Culiacan and Guadalajara experienced spikes in violence, with shootings and roadblocks marking the cartel's efforts to re-establish control. The destabilization was immediate and widespread, further complicating efforts to restore order. For Mexico, the terrorist designation also introduced new legal challenges. Individuals accused of aiding the cartels now faced prosecution under anti-terrorism laws, which carried harsher penalties and limited legal protections. The judicial system was forced to adapt to a surge in high-profile cases, while the broader economy remained vulnerable to the threat of renewed US sanctions. Despite these complications, US policymakers viewed the disruption of cartel leadership and networks as a necessary cost in the broader campaign. Central to this campaign was the deployment of military-grade drones. These platforms allowed for persistent, precise surveillance and targeting, transforming the operational environment. Drones monitored cartel activity around the clock, identifying supply routes, tracking personnel, and intercepting communications. In one notable operation, drones pinpointed a network of fentanyl labs concealed beneath an agricultural compound. The intelligence gathered enabled authorities to coordinate simultaneous strikes, dismantling the facility and capturing its operators with minimal risk. The integration of counter-terrorism tactics and advanced technology shifted the balance of power. The reclassification did not merely alter the legal status of the cartels, it established the framework for a new kind of campaign, one that relied on intelligence and surveillance to expose and dismantle entrenched criminal infrastructure. As these tools continued to be deployed, the illusion of cartel invulnerability began to collapse. The next phase would reveal how drones, once a tool of distant battlefields, became the decisive factor in breaching the most secure cartel fortresses. Military-grade drones brought infrared imaging, encrypted communications interception, and real-time tracking to cartel territory. These platforms operated far above the reach of ground patrols, collecting intelligence without alerting those below. With their sensors, drones identified heat signatures from generators, ventilation shafts, and even the subtle warmth of human presence inside bunkers. Cartel leaders who once relied on thick concrete and steel to shield their operations found their defenses compromised by technology designed for the battlefield. The illusion of invulnerability surrounding cartel strongholds began to dissolve with each successful operation. One of the most decisive moments came in July 2022, when authorities captured Rafael Caro Quintero, known as the narco of narcos. After years evading capture, Quintero was finally located in a brush-covered hideout in Sinaloa. Drones equipped with thermal imaging tracked the heat signature of his encampment, pinpointing his position even as he attempted to stay concealed among dense vegetation. This capability rendered traditional camouflage and rural isolation ineffective. The mission's success was not a product of luck or informant betrayal, but of persistent aerial surveillance that observed, recorded, and revealed patterns invisible to ground-based teams. Drone surveillance also exposed the hidden infrastructure that powered cartel operations. In one operation targeting a CJNG compound, drones detected an unusual heat signature beneath an agricultural outbuilding. Analysis revealed the presence of an underground fentanyl laboratory, complete with electric lighting, air filtration, and active personnel. Real-time intelligence allowed authorities to coordinate a precise air-ground strike. Ground teams moved in only after the drones confirmed the lab's location and monitored escape routes, intercepting key operators before they could flee through concealed tunnels. The entire operation unfolded with minimal risk to law enforcement and left the cartel's manufacturing hub in ruins. With situational awareness delivered from above, Marines and special units no longer charged blind into traps. Instead, each raid was planned around up-to-the-minute intelligence, details on guard rotations, tunnel exits, and the movement of vehicles around the perimeter. This approach not only reduced casualties, but also increased the chances of capturing high-value targets alive and securing evidence critical for prosecution. The days of relying on unreliable informants or storming fortified compounds with limited knowledge were replaced by a model built on persistent observation and data-driven tactics. The psychological impact on cartel leadership was immediate and profound. Bunkers that once symbolized unassailable power became liabilities. Cartel figures began abandoning their fortresses, opting for constant movement and temporary safe houses. This shift disrupted command and control, making it more difficult to coordinate logistics, manufacturing, and enforcement across territories. Persistent drone presence in the skies forced cartel operatives to operate with a new level of caution, eroding the confidence that had long sustained their dominance. The advantage extended beyond tactical victories. Drones enabled the simultaneous tracking and apprehension of multiple cartel leaders across disparate locations, as seen during the February 2025 mass extradition. By feeding live intelligence to joint task forces, these platforms made coordinated strikes possible, overwhelming cartel defenses and fragmenting leadership structures in a single night. The result was not just the removal of key individuals, but the unraveling of networks that depended on secrecy and rapid communication. This technological edge also recalibrated the relationship between law enforcement and organized crime. The ability to peer into previously impenetrable spaces, detecting the faint heat of a generator or the movement of a single guard, shifted the initiative to authorities. Cartels could no longer rely on static defenses or the obscurity of remote locations. Every generator, every encrypted message, every movement risked exposure. The new reality was clear. The stronghold was no longer a sanctuary. As drone deployments continued, the balance of power in cartel territory changed. The strongholds that once embodied cartel resilience now represented vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. The operational calculus for both law enforcement and organized crime had fundamentally changed. With each successful mission, the myth of cartel invincibility faded further, replaced by the stark reality of persistent surveillance and precision targeting. This shift in the operational landscape set the stage for a broader transformation. The contest between organized crime and law enforcement was no longer defined by brute force or static defenses, but by the ability to see, track, and respond with speed and accuracy. The consequences of this technological evolution would ripple far beyond the immediate victories, raising new questions about the future of security and the ongoing struggle to contain criminal networks. Advanced surveillance technology has shifted the balance of power, placing law enforcement in control of a battlefield once dominated by fortified cartel bunkers. Military-grade drones, with their ability to track heat signatures and intercept communications, have exposed hidden strongholds and dismantled the myth of cartel invincibility. The terrorist reclassification enabled agencies to deploy counter-terrorism tools, fundamentally rewriting the rules of engagement against organized crime. As fortified bunkers fall under the gaze of the drone, cartel invincibility is a thing of the past, and the future battlefield is as much about observation as it is about firepower. If you found this insight into drone tactics and counter-cartel strategy useful, subscribe for more deep dives on military tech and operations.